real estate that you can buy for 50 bucks, gold that you can send like a text, and a regulated digital euro that might someday tap to ride the metro. When I first heard that all of this ran on the same blockchain, I thought that somebody was pitching me a late night infomercial, but no, people are actually using this stuff right now on Algorand. So stick around here, because by the time that you're done, you might actually never look at layer 1 networks the same way again. Okay, here's a quick story. Right, a few months ago, I was complaining to a buddy that crypto felt like nothing but charts, hype, and meme coins in frog pajamas. He just smiled, pulled out his phone, and showed me fractional ownership in a rental property in another state that he bought for less than the cost of dinner for two. And it was paying him rent in USDC. Now that moment sent me down a bit of a rabbit trail that led straight into 5 real projects actually doing useful things on Algorand. Now, I met tokenized real estate with voting rights, DeFi tools that don't ask a bank's permission, dominated gold that you can redeem, a payments rail helping people where the banking rails are thin, and a regulated digital euro built for real commerce. And all of them lean on the very same core ingredients: speed, low fees, instant settlement and finality, and energy-efficient security. So let me set the table before we kind of pass the dishes. Lots of blockchains promise the moon, scales to infinity, next-gen throughput, carbon negative teleportation lasers. Okay, maybe not the last one yet. But when you kind of step out of a white paper and into actual business workflows, rental payouts, cross-border aid, regulated finance, 3 kind of boring words show up like unsung heroes: fast, cheap, final, right? Now, if you send value and have to wait minutes or worse, you're not sure if the transaction can be reversed. Right? Well, you can't simply run payroll, settle rent, or loan a kind of transit card at scale, right? Now, Algorand's numbers, they matter here, right? The network can process up to 10,000 transactions per second, and each reaches instant finality. Now, that means that once it's confirmed, you can treat it as final settlement, not pending, maybe. Fees, of course, well, they're flat and they're low across transaction types, so that you don't get kind of gouged on days where, usage spikes, right? And it runs a pure proof-of-stake consensus design that keeps energy usage minimal while still supporting decentralization or the kind of projects that actually build on top of it. Now that combo, right? Speed, certainty, cost, energy profile. They set the stage for stories that I'm about to tell you. So let's start with where my kind of personal curiosity kind of got punched in the face: real estate. Now, the platform is called Lofty and it lives on Algorand. So imagine scrolling property listings the way that you scroll sneakers, except instead of needing a 6-figure down payment and a stack of lawyer-approved documents, you can actually step in for as little as $50. Now that's kind of fractional, tokenized real estate for you, right? Your dollars become digital tokens tied to a property. So think of it as like owning slices of a pizza, except the pizza collects rent checks. Now, the thing is that makes the whole thing actually workable is Algorand's instant finality and low fees. Right? When someone buys or sells a slice, you don't have to wait hours for settlement or risk paying more in transaction costs than you actually earn in monthly rent. Right? The rails are lean. Now, here is where, at least what I should say, sets Lofty apart from traditional real estate investment trusts. Right? The old school kind of REITs, a lot of us kind of know from index funds, for example. Now, in a regular REIT, you're basically a passenger, right? Management decides when the roof gets fixed or whether to actually raise the rent. Now, Lofty flips the script. Investors get full control through a legal DAO structure, right? Hold tokens, vote on decisions. Roof leaking, propose maintenance. Debating a rent adjustment, put it to token weighted vote. So it's kind of property management as a group chat with accountability. And yes, rent flows, right? Fractional ownership lets shareholders receive rent payments, dominated in USDC, right? Now, from jointly owned properties, right, so far. Now, Lofty users, they actually have already, generated $4 million in rental income. Now, I remember staring at that number because real estate is supposed to be slow, it's supposed to be illiquid, and tied up in escrow purgatory, right? Yet here were addresses tossing stablecoin rent to people who might have to actually put $50 in. Now, you can sell your slice, you can reallocate, you can participate without waiting for quarterly kind of REIT filings. Now, that's not crypto magic, right? That's actually matching a high velocity, low fee ledger to a market that's always been locked behind high friction. So let me pause and ask, right? Have you ever wished that you could chip in on rental in a good neighborhood without remortgaging your life? Well, that's the emotional bridge that Lofty kind of walks across. And because it's on Algorand, those investor votes, rent distributions, and ownership transfers settle fast and cheap. So think about the alternative then, right? Paying a lawyer, paying escrow, wiring funds, waiting days. And here, the base network instant finality lets the app behave like a live marketplace rather than an auction that closes next Tuesday. From property to pocket finance then, let's talk about Folk Finance, right? Now, if you've ever tried getting small loans and run head first into paperwork, credit histories, and the dreaded waiting call, right, we're reviewing your file, well, you'll actually appreciate what a non-custodial wallet-based approach feels like, right? Folk's Finance is built on Algorand and brings a bundle of DeFi services, lending, borrowing, trading, and liquid staking, right? No bank branch, no credit officer with a tie tighter than a security at an airport gate. If you've got a wallet, you can interact. Now, here's why the underlying chain matters once again, right? DeFi only feels decentralized if the network is responsive and affordable. Now, on a slow, congested chain, adjusting collateral or harvesting staking yields becomes a patience sport. Now, Folk's Finance leans on Algorand's instant finality and low cost per transactions, right? You want to supply assets and borrow against them? Well, you don't have to wait, at least if you don't want your interest accrual, we are clicking forward while a pending transaction kind of floats in limbo, right? Now, Algorand's high scalability, it helps Folk Finance support growing user demand without jacking up fees or throttling the throughput. Now, that's crucial if DeFi is going to compete with the kind of click and go experience that people get from fintech apps. There's also the psychological side. When people realize that they can access borrowing and trading tools without sending scans of every life document that they've ever actually signed, it changes who can actually participate. Is it risk-free? Of course not, right? Smart contract risk exists, collateral volatility, they're all real, right? But the access rails, they do widen, and every time that someone can rebalance a position quickly because the chain settles instantly, well, that person is less likely to rage quit crypto altogether. Okay, let's get shiny. Gold, right? Good old dense heavy, right? It needs a vault, needs a kind of vault gold, right? Or maybe even silver, right? If you like to hedge with kind of cold toned vibes. Now, traditional precious metals investing carries friction, big minimums, custody headaches, storage and insurance fees, and usually some kind of trusted intermediary logging who owns which bar, right? Meld Gold looked at the mess and said, what if ownership lived on Algorand, right? Each token they issue represents 1 gram of gold or silver and is fully redeemable. Now that gram leveled granularity, is a killer feature here, right? You don't have to muster up the capital for an entire ounce or bar, right? You can accumulate in slithers that kind of fit your budget. Now, because the supply chain data travels on chain, transparency goes up, right? Who sourced it, who moved it, where it's vaulted, trackable and traceable, right? Now, Algorand's instant settlement and low fees make buying and transferring those tokens cost efficient, which basically means active trading doesn't punish smaller holders. So if you want to stack, let's say 10 grams over time, you're not paying more in network costs than the metal is actually worth. And because it's blockchain based, you don't need a middle desk to reconcile ledgers across different brokers. Transparency reduces the need for intermediaries, and that trims both cost and the error risk. Now, I love the mental image right here, right? You and a friend splitting a small gold allocation the way that you would split a dinner bill, right? Just send over a few gram tokens who want to rebalance into silver, same rail. Compare that with, of course, shipping insured bullion, and or wiring to a kind of metal dealer that's kind of closed on weekends. Again, it's boring engineering choices, speed, cost, certainty, unlocked new patterns of behavior, right? Now, I want to tell you about one of the most human use cases in the bunch, HesabPay. Now, not everyone lives near a bank branch, right? And even where banks exist. Now, the infrastructure may be fragile or limited. In places like Afghanistan, moving money reliably for everyday expenses or humanitarian aid, if I can talk today, can be slow, expensive, and risky, right? So picture an aid organization just trying to distribute funds across remote communities. Cash drops, right? Fraught, legacy rails, patchy, Now, HesabPay, built an interoperable digital payment system on Algorand so that people can, move money and value through a single app. You can pay your bills, you can send peer-to-peer transactions or receive aid. Now, when fees eat a big slice of relief payments before it actually lands, right? The people who need the help actually lose out. Now, Algorand's low fees actually help keep more value intact as it moves. Instant finality cuts down on the kind of did it go through anxiety. And when you're paying for essentials, you don't have the time for ghost transactions, right? And because the network scales, HesabPay, actually can handle higher, volumes without actually bogging down, and it's important when organizations actually ramp up distributions during crises. Now, I remember talking to someone who volunteers in aid logistics. Whole days were lost reconciling spreadsheets of who got what, right? So just imagine replacing that with kind of a ledgered, final, low-cost transfer that hits, a recipient's kind of mobile interface with a, reliable timestamp. That's the promise right here. Now, it might not be glamorous to many, but it's not the kind of yield farming that many maybe are used to for their meme coins or whatever, right? But it's the rails that actually help real families get the help faster. Now, the last stop on our 5-pack tour is Quantos payments, that is, and the digital euro known for, or at least known as, I should say, EURD. Now, we've all seen US dollar stablecoins explode across crypto trading desks, right? But regulated euro-denominated stablecoin assets, well, they haven't actually been many of those that kind of tick compliance boxes and play nicely with enterprise and consumer payments. Now, Quantos kind of built the EURD on Algorand to kind of close that gap. The goal was a secure, fast, cost-efficient digital payment across Europe. So think retail checkouts, public transport taps, everyday commerce. Now, Algorand's low transaction cost matter when you're talking about buying a coffee or scanning onto a bus, right? Now, you can't have a network fee that costs you more than the actual fare, right? Now, instant finality matters to merchants so that they can actually treat funds as goods, immediately, right? And not stand there awkwardly while the terminal kind of does its thing or whirls blissfully. And here is the big kind of enterprise checkbox. Algorand supports secure atomic transactions. So linked transfers either all settle or none do. Plus, it built in compliance tools like whitelisting and asset freezing. So regulators, they all care about that, and companies care about that too. So if a digital euro is going to be regulatory friendly and still usable at scale, you need policy levers wired right into the asset layer, and EURD actually checks that box. Okay, let's tie some threads together. Loftly, it opens up real estate investing, right, with voting rights and stable coin rent, and at a price point that most people can actually handle. Now, Folks Finance, it strips banking friction from lending, borrowing, and staking, wallet in, services out. And Meld Gold lets you hold and trade grams of precious metals with redeemable and transparent supply chain data. HesabPay, it basically helps kind of move the humanitarian and daily payments through a mobile gateway where banking rails are weak. And Quantos is kind of EURD. It pushes towards a regulated digital euro that can handle everything from small merchant sales to transit. So what does all of these things demand? Well, they all demand speed so that users don't have to wait, low and predictable fees so that microtransactions make sense, and final settlements so businesses can reconcile instantly. And of course, a network design that doesn't torch the planet every time that the volume spikes. Now, those are the Algorand ingredients repeating like a bass line under 5 different songs. Now, I know that you might be thinking, cool stories, but what about the token price? Look, speculation will always swirl around any crypto asset, right? But here is the twist that changed how I look at the space. Real-world traction doesn't always start with the price. It actually starts with something working better than the old way. So when reducing a transaction fee means families eat tonight, when instant finality means a landlord gets paid and unlocks cash flow, or when gram-level gold actually lets small investors hedge savings, well, those are sticky use cases, and price will do whatever price does. Utility builds staying power. Now, this is kind of where decentralization really matters in less idealistic, or at least ideological. Wow, I'm having a day today. And more practical senses, I guess, right? Because Algorand's pure proof-of-stake consensus, it keeps energy usage minimal while allowing projects to decentralize. So if Lofty's investors are going to vote meaningfully, and if HesabPay, is going to anchor aid payments, then you don't want a single switchboard operator who can be pressured into rewriting history. So immutability and security, they are not academic. They are safeguards for people whose budgets don't actually include a plan B. So let me kind of drop the required warning right here, and I want you all to kind of really hear it, because everything that I've said so far is about tools. And what to do with them is on you. So here it is. And this one might just shock you, but I'm not a financial advisor, and nothing in this video is financial advice. Cryptocurrencies are highly volatile, and you could lose all of the money that you invest. You should always do your own research and consult a qualified professional. After all, your investments are entirely your responsibility, and you should know that nothing is ever guaranteed when it comes to investing. Neither I, this channel, nor YouTube are liable for any losses. And This video today is for entertainment and educational purposes only. Good? Cool? Well, let's keep on rolling. Now, one of my favorite parts of learning about these projects is the gap between what people assume blockchain is good for versus what's actually happening. Ask a random friend and they might say, isn't crypto just online casino coins? Sure, speculation is loud, but below all of that noise are builders, plugging ledgers into industries that feel like dial-up internet age. Real estate settlement cycles built for fax machines, right? And physical metal trades that clear on spreadsheets. Aid disbursements, run on trust and ledger notebooks, right? National currencies that glitch across different border controls. So when you give those systems a shared, fast, low-cost settlement layer, weird things suddenly become normal, right? Rent hits your wallet daily, micro gold accumulates paycheck by paycheck, aid flows trackable in near real time, and transit turns a tap into a final payment, not an IOU. And I haven't even touched on the energy angle just yet, right? Every time that someone brings up blockchains boiling the oceans, right, I point to designs like Algorand's pure proof of stake, right? Minimal energy requirement relative to heavy compute chains mean that the incremental environmental load of that kind of rent vote or bus fare is tiny. So if we want infrastructure that can handle and host millions or even billions of small value transactions without blowing out carbon budgets, this stuff matters. All right, let's circle back through each project with a quick why you might care kind of snapshot so that you can remember which ones kind of scratched which itch. So if you've been priced out of real estate, Lofty lets you start small, $50 small, right? And still participate in property level decisions. Rent in USDC already happening. More than $4 million in rental income has flowed to users. That's evidence that's not even pitch deck ink. If you want a permissionless finance kind of toolset, lend, borrow, trade, stake, without waiting for a banker's nod, well, folks, finance runs those rails on Algorand's high-speed blockchain. Now, wallets in, services up. Instant Finality helps active positions behave the way that you would expect. And if you believe in precious metals but don't want, the vault headaches, well, Meld Gold tokenizes each gram. You buy what you can afford, redeemable, transparent supply chain with the low fee transfers. Build a kind of a metals position over time without any of the shipping bars. And if you care about financial access in the underbanked regions, or you work with NGOs, HesabPay delivers a digital payment system on Algorand that can move humanitarian aid. See how I nailed it that time, right? These people can pay their bills and support peer transfers in places where cash lines, are slow rails dominant, right? Now, low fees, it means more help arrives intact. And if you live, work, or build in Euroland, or want a regulated digital euro that can clear everyday purchases without fee shocks, well, Quantos's EURD sits on Algorand with compliance hooks, whitelisting, freezing assets, atomic transactions, enterprise ready, regulatory friendly, coffee priced transaction economy. Now, all of these examples, they kind of showcase Algorand's core strengths, right? Speed measured in thousands of TPS, immediate finality so that parties treat settlements as done, a flat, low-fee model that makes micro value viable, and a low-energy, pure of kind of proof-of-stake architecture that lets projects decentralize without burning coal by the hour. And so let me kind of plug something helpful here. If you want a place where you can keep learning about projects that have real users, not just spicy tickers, jump into our free educational Discord server. The link is in the description. It's a good hang, right? Beginners to builders, lots of questions, plenty of charts, and the occasional meme when markets get a bit weird. And because several of you asked how to get started trading or to accumulate crypto without getting hammered by the fees, yes, we use Kraken Pro, and the link that's in the description is an affiliate link, which means that if you use it, it supports the channel at no extra cost to yourself. Now, I always say this out loud because transparency matters, and if we earn, you should know that too, right? So where do we go from here? Maybe you set up, at least set aside maybe one research night a week. Maybe you pull up Lofty and Peak at the property listings, right? Open Folks Finance, and maybe you take a look at the lending interface. Read how Meld Gold handles redemption. Check out, HesabPay's mission if global access matters to you. And if you're in Europe, watch how EURD adoption kind of shapes up, right? Payments in a kind of slow and sudden kind of game, right? And something funny also happened to me after I kind of chased those 5 threads down, right? I stopped asking, will blockchains change the world? And I actually started asking, which corners has it already crawled into while we argue on Twitter? And the answer is, it's actually a lot more corners than I thought, right? When you kind of make moving value cheap, fast and final and green, right? People actually get creative with it, right? Pizza slices real estate up, right? Gram by gram bullion, right? Aid rails in hard places, regulated euros that kind of settle like chat messages. This is not sci-fi. That's just code actually shipping value. So you know what? Let me kind of challenge you here, right? The next time that someone rolls their eyes and says crypto's pointless, ask them if they've seen a landlord and hundreds of small investors voting on roof repairs from their phones. Ask if they've seen rent stream in USDC. Ask if they've ever sent 2 grams of gold across borders in seconds. And ask if they've tried to push emergency aid through a banking system that closes at 4. And tell them about Algorand. Now, I'm not saying that you need to sell your car and buy algo. I'm saying that you need to put real-world utility on your radar when you evaluate any chain, Algorand or otherwise. Speed, fees, finality, energy profile, programmability, compliance features. These are the dials that determine which ideas move from demo to daily habit. And all right, I promised to kind of keep this actionable, so here's the checklist. Pick one of the 5 projects and open an account or testnet wallet. Read the docs. Try a tiny transaction just to feel settlement speed. Write down how long it took and what it actually cost. And then tell me in the comments what surprised you most. Was it voting on a property, seeing a DeFi borrow limit update, watching a gold token land? I want to hear it. And here's a last reminder, right? The Kraken Pro link that is in the description is an affiliate link. Using it supports the channel and helps me keep making these deep research videos like this one. Totally appreciate it if you use it, or if you don't use it, it's entirely up to you. Make sure that you use a platform that works in your jurisdiction and works for you. And of course, come and hang out with us as well in our free educational Discord. If you've got any questions about Algorand projects, or you want to kind of compare layer 1 networks, that's kind of where the best kind of back and forth actually happens. So for now, hit the subscribe button and I'll catch you all in that next story that's lining up right over there.